Cheers. Cheers, Mum, for the money. Beautiful. Big deep breath. There we go. Channel your inner Kate Abdu. Come on. Your big weeks vibes.
Welcome to the PSA Playbook, the podcast where we explore the world of youth sports. From the nuances of player development and coaching strategies to parenting perspectives and the psychology of performance. This is your weekly guide to navigating the youth sports landscape and raising confident, capable young athletes both on and off the field. Today's topic, what defines a good youth coach?
It's a very good topic. I think, honestly, to answer it, it's just energy, adaptability. I think it's environment too. I feel like the only thing that really stands out for me is just like impact on the field. Like I said, energy. Like, can you show up and completely switch on for the kids? I feel like we can all agree, especially at like between travel practice and rec, your energy defines like how the kids are.
Everything.
100%. And I feel like if you show up on the field, like there's days where I've showed up and I'm like, I don't feel like I can give 100%, but I have to. Because the kids deserve it. Like, they show up, they only see you for an hour.
That's the biggest. I think, to me, it's about the kids. There's coaches who I've seen coach for themselves. They coach to win, and it's an individual thing. A good coach, they need to understand it's about the kids, whether it's bringing the energy, whether it's doing like session planning and stuff like that, going above and beyond and communicating with parents. It's understanding that it's for the kids. Yeah, definitely. I feel like, especially I tell like my school coaches, any travel coach, like any even rec coaches, like they might look at rec and be like, oh, they're just here to kind of just have fun. But like either way, like it's still important to them. They're looking forward to it through school. Their parents have told them when they wake up, like, you've got soccer tonight. Like, they're thinking about it. And they come and tell and be like, oh, I had soccer today in PE at school. I had soccer today, blah, blah, blah. Like, they are looking forward to coming. No matter what level it is, no matter what coach it is, like, it's in the back of their head. So for you to show up, like, and give 50%, give, like, even 70%, like, that's not enough for me. Yeah. Because they're looking forward to their whole day. Even though it's an hour for us, it's their whole day for them. I think understanding like the responsibility as well, that if you have an off day or like even like a little slip of the tongue when you say something negative, if you are frustrated or tired, it goes such a long way with the kids. Yes. And like in the reverse side of it, a little like positive reinforcement, a good job or a good, like it's made their day, like you say. So I think understanding like the responsibility, understanding the impact that you have as a coach, even though you sometimes see yourself as maybe I'm not that big of a deal or not that like influential, you're so important in their lives, especially like the younger ones who look up to you and almost like idolize their coaches. Yeah, they like latch on to like every word. I feel like recently, like we just started the futures and like travel back up again. And like I say one thing and like 3 days later they're like asking about it. And I'm they never forget. Yeah, I'm like, how do you remember that? And then especially when it comes to like my coaching stuff, like there's keywords that I try to use, like keep it short and simple because again they're 8, 9, 10. You can't give them paragraphs, but like it's knowing your players as well, like knowing what is suitable for them, knowing how they like take what you're saying and put it into the game. So there's something that they taught me as a coach for God knows how many years. It's like the kids taught me like we want to be like a pancake instead of a cookie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't have any clue, but the kids, that's how they adapt, that's how they learn, that's how they like take it. A pancake and a cookie? So when you're playing, a cookie is small, right? So we don't want to bundle up on the field. But a pancake is big. And the girls were telling me that. And I'm like, so what do we do? Like, do we go close? And they're like, we need to be a pancake. I'm like, what are you talking about? Genius. You know, but they taught me that. And it's things like that where you just like, as a youth coach, like you need to know your players. You need to know the personalities. You need to know, are they individual? Are they group? Like anything like that, different factors. How important is it at the different ages? Like can somebody be a good coach for just a certain age group? How important is it, I guess, knowing the age group that you're working with or the types of players that you're working with? I definitely think, like, from my opinion, I don't know, like, how you feel about it. I feel like you've coached all over, like, years as well as, like, genders. But, like, for me, I've done a bit of both. I think you can take factors that can be used for a 5-year-old and 18-year-olds. But I also think it's very important for a coach to come out on a field
and understand, okay, I'm coaching my U10s today.
Right.
But then in an hour, I've got my U14s.
Right.
There's different languages that you can use,
sure.
different kind of energies that you can give, and again, like adaptability. Like my U10s aren't going to be doing the same thing as my U14s, but they also are at the same time. Like, yeah, we're going to be working on passing and movement off the ball, but there's different ways to go about it with a 9-year-old compared to a 13-year-old. And I think a coach can't just have one plan for every single player, every single age.
I think the culture that a coach builds is really important. That defines a good coach for sure. If the culture that they bring to a team or a club or whatever is huge, because like you say, working with the younger kids, you're not going to ask them to do very difficult skills. The word choice that you use is not going to be complicated, but overall, like the standards that you keep with all age groups are going to be the same thing. So a coach that can kind of maintain those things and also understands that you need to have a very fun and bubbly and silly energy for this, and a little bit more of like a serious, more solemn tone for like the older ones. And identifying that before you do the session and understanding, okay, I need to switch this on or switch that off. The more, I guess, adaptable you are, it makes a good coach too.
Yeah, I definitely have been thinking about it this week, and I want to ask you, how do I word this? Do you think it's important to go back to basics even with older age groups? Like, I feel like some coaches, like, yes, they have the baseline, but how do you feel like going back to basics with older? And I don't mean like everyone stand on a cone and pass back and forth. I mean like bringing back that language of like, it's two touch, it's control pass. Because I know with my U14s, like we're trying to develop more, we're trying to get deeper into practice than I would with my U10s. But do you think it's important for like a youth coach to always remember like the basics?
I think with that, a good coach understands how to motivate players. They understand how to get the best out of players. And sometimes older players don't want to hear those sorts of things. They think they're too good, or they've leveled up, and that's beneath them now.
Yeah.
So being able to motivate them and still asking them to do the basic things, but still maybe verbalizing it or communicating it in a way that motivates them.
Reinforce it.
Exactly. I think that's important. So you can maybe be somebody who knows a lot about the game and knows what players need to do, and you understand tactics and all these sorts of things in any sport. But if you can't connect to the kids and you can't motivate them to do what you want to do, because again, I've seen many coaches that maybe aren't the best tactically, or they're not the best in terms of whatever it takes on the field, but their kids would run through a brick wall for them, and they really like them, they really support them, and that is like a huge skill, motivating your kids and having them like be bought into what you do.
Yeah, I definitely feel like my opinion is like, I think from like 8 to about 11, if they have the energy, like you said, run through a brick wall, like that's my ball, not yours. You can teach everything else at that 8, that kind of like group. You can definitely teach everything else. But it's what I'm finding like with my older teams now is like, you turn up to practice, it's your choice. It's your choice if you want to put in the energy, but it's also up to the coach as well, like to give that energy. I think it's a 50-50 deal. Like, I think for some of the players, I'm like, I'm giving 100%. I need you to give me 100%, because we're at practice for an hour and 30 minutes. We're at practice for an hour. Like, whatever it is, like, we don't have a lot of time. I can't be out here for 3 hours, but I can't ask them to give it to me if I can't give it to them.
I think that's like something that every coach deals with, because you are so passionate, you care so much. They don't realize the sacrifice and commitment that you do sometimes, and
the behind the scenes.
You're like, the minimum I want is like effort, and then this is the minute. But I think with that, coaches need to realize that you sometimes can't show that frustration. You need to like figure out and maneuver a way to motivate them, because the hardest thing, I think, when you're coaching team sports, what works for one player won't work for another player. This communication won't work for this individual. Some kids will show up and give 100% every single time. Some kids need some tough love. Some kids need some pat on the back and positive reinforcement. Understanding that like there's moments when you communicate to the whole group, and that's when you like redefine your culture, what your standards are, and things like that. But the importance of taking a kid aside and speaking to them one-on-one and understanding Susie maybe needs this, and Ashley needs this, little Jimmy needs this, and Joseph needs this, and how can you get the best out of all of these players? Because I mean, we'll move to a slightly different one, but for the parents, yes, parents want the teams to succeed. Yes, they want them to do well. Overall, I've spoken to dozens of parents, maybe hundreds of parents. When they watch the game, they're watching their kid.
Yeah.
They are caring about their kid. And if the team is winning, their individual son either isn't playing or isn't playing well. It's a negative experience right away. So for a coach, understanding how to motivate players and understanding that every single player is different, like there's difficulty. So again, I was going to ask what's like a difficult thing about, or I guess some of the difficulties in being a youth coach.
Yeah, I think especially recently, like you say, motivating your players, but you have to motivate the parents as well.
For sure.
Which is not what most coaches realize, especially maybe not so much, okay, definitely at the rec, but more so at travel. I think rec parents, like, they just love to be there, don't they?
Yeah,
they either love to be there and they're all for it, or they love to just sit, read a book.
Yeah.
Kids off, they're having fun. Great.
They're running. They're
they're having a good time. But with travel as well, it's also like, in any sport, I can assume, is that you motivate the players. Yes, your time is 80% players. However, you're only with them for 3 hours a week.
Yeah, everything else
is with the parents. So I think that's what coaches don't understand is, like, especially youth coaches, is the parents' impact on the player. When they get in the car, are they talking about soccer or not? Are they talking about basketball or not? Are they talking about their sport that they just played or not? And I think the main thing, like me growing up, my dad, it was in the car after practice and it was give me a full report, even though he watched it all.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part about being a youth coach, maybe not the hardest, but it's up there, is talking with the parents. Right. What can you do? And I understand the frustrations or like the hesitations of a parent. It's like, I don't know anything about soccer. My kid's great at it, don't know where she or he got it from. And that's also an adaptation of the coach, is how do I give topics for the parents? You're not just coaching the kids now, you're coaching the parents too.
Yeah.
And I think what is helping my parents right now is, like, I'll write out my 5 key topics for the week. So even though when they get in the car on the way to practice, on the way home from practice, after a game, it's like, okay, these are your key topics. Mm-hmm. And parents can have conversation with the kids. Like, they know their kids better than anyone. That's my opinion. It's just, like, motivating the parents. What do you think is, like, the hardest? So I feel like you deal with both sides as well.
Well, to touch on the parent side of things, I think it's very reasonable for parents to be demanding.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to pay.
There's a product that they want.
If you have multiple kids playing multiple different sports, multiple different seasons, it's an investment. It's very expensive.
Expectations are definitely
but also like it's a time commitment as well. It's so much. And parents that drive to games and their son or daughter doesn't play very much, they're thinking this is a waste of time. Yeah. And whereas the coach has maybe more of an understanding of why that is, or like what value of like not playing does to a child. What it reinforces resilience. They're communicating about certain things that they need to do in practice or in the games or whatever the case is. Yeah. But the whole point about that, the difficulty is like the disconnect between the coach is spending a lot of time with the player, speaking to the player, giving them feedback and things like that. The parent only sees the game for the most part. They sometimes will watch the practice, but their judgment will come based on the game. And development, as we know, doesn't happen like that. Yeah. Sometimes the things that you work on, kids physically mature, emotionally mature, socially mature at different stages. So understanding like it's a long path development. And sometimes parents are impatient with those sorts of things, which makes sense, but they're expecting sometimes results right away, which is difficult because, again, no coach gets into this industry not like wanting kids to fail. Like, you know what I mean? You don't never want a kid to fail. You want kids to succeed, and you get a good feeling when kids do well. And the coach's favorite thing is where a player was at this time to where they are right now.
The growth.
Because they feel so much like they feel such a sense of pride.
That's your kid. Like, that's your...
Exactly.
Yeah,
you feel so much pride, so much fulfillment. So it's a difficulty, definitely, communicating those sorts of things to parents, having them be bought in and in for the long haul and stuff like that. It's difficult for sure. But I mean, just in general, coaching is like just for like it is for parents and kids. It's such a time commitment. Yeah. Your evenings and weekends are a wrap.
You're 7 days a week.
Especially those coaches who have like 2 and 3 teams. It's a wrap. It's crazy. So again, that's why like coaches understand parents' frustrations and concerns and things like that, but they're living a very similar thing as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard for parents to realize on the parent side and then coaches to realize is that like what parents are frustrated about, the coaches aren't focusing on.
Right.
And what coaches are frustrated on, the parents aren't focusing on.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find that connect of like, you know, this is, as a coach, this is my vision. No matter what level, no matter what sport, this is my vision that I see. Trying to reiterate and reinforce that for the parents. So they're not getting frustrated like, oh, we lost a game, or oh, my kid didn't do so well. But they're trying the things that coach is asking.
Yeah.
And the parents don't hear the conversations on the sidelines. They don't hear the one-to-ones. They don't hear the little huddles.
Yeah.
They just see it. Okay, great, game time, let's go.
Yeah.
And they don't like, and I think it's trying to find that connect of like, this is what coaches want, this is what the parent sees, but understanding what we're working on.
I think it's so important, on that point, it's so important for parents to be involved in the process and to have those one-on-one meetings and discuss discuss your development, discuss where we are now, what our goals are for it's so important for parents to be doing that and to be involved in that process. But for coaches that coach these team sports, not individual athletes, because I think that's more of a focal point for them, but for these team sports, you're trying to build a successful team, and within that team, you want individual growth as well.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And again, I think some coaches equate like success to the team winning. And sometimes, I mean, and for me in particular, I take far more pride in individual improvement, where kids were when you started working with them to where they are. And sometimes that's not reflected in results. And a lot of the times parents say, wow, we're undefeated this season. And I'm like, well, doesn't really matter.
So hot.
Again, at the younger ages, it's important to have a balanced season of wins, losses, draws. It's important. If you just lose, your motivation's down. There's so many things that go with that. If you just win, yes, you feel great, you feel like a superstar, but the reality of it is, like, how old are you? What are you focusing on? Are you reinforcing bad behavior? Do you just have a team that's very athletic right now and you're not really understanding how to be a technical, intelligent soccer player or basketball player or whatever, football player? So that there's like, they need to understand that it's a long pathway of development, and sometimes the immediate feel-good factors and stuff like that don't equate to long-term success and long-term like love of the sport.
Yeah, I definitely think that just building off of like game day wins, like for me this season, especially for fall, like we won 2 games, and honestly those were like games that yes, we won, and yes, we scored like, I think it was 4 goals each game, which is great. But like for me, I was like, did you see that pass that they just made? Did you see those 5 passes? Did you see that movement? And the parents just like, as much as, I mean, I hate losing. I hate losing so much, like anyone else. But the parents are like, oh, we won. And I'm like, yeah, but did you see her? And I'm like, realizing that I'm buzzing off different things. And the parents, like when I speak to them individually, they're like, oh, my daughter, like, did you see her do that? And they're starting to build on it and realize it. Like individually, you can see from game 1 to game 100 like what they've done differently completely. And like, yeah, okay, game A we lost 3-1, but how many strings of passes did we do? How many times did we attack? Instead of 1v3, it was 3v3. And it's things like that that I really want the parents to understand and see. Like, yes, we lost this XYZ amount, but you can see what we did in practice. That was coming. Because there's obvious things when you're watching any sport. There's obvious things that you know are good and obvious things that you know are bad. But as you get to a certain level, and coaches have played, I'm assuming coaches have played for like a long period throughout their life, and some parents who maybe haven't played that individual sport or maybe haven't played any sports, they only really see the obvious things, an obvious good shot, or an obvious good whatever, or an obvious bad thing, this mistake or that mistake. But sometimes coaches see beyond that, and they see the finer details of what led to those sorts of things, or like those micro moments that are far more significant than one big, very obvious thing. I do think that kind of like answers like the overall like topic of today is like what makes a good youth coach is like knowing your player. Like when you look at that player, I know exactly what she's good at and what she's not. Immediately. Like you can just tell like for sure. They have attributes. Like for me as a player, I was not fast. But I read the game so well because I wasn't fast, you know? Like, I have stubby legs. I was a short centre-back. But I knew how to read the game, so I didn't have to run. And it's things like that I was good at. And, like, my passing, but I wasn't good at dribbling. That's why I was a centre-back, you know? And it's things like that where I look at my girls. I look at the girls at rec. I look at the boys in travel, like you can tell immediately the finer factors that they're immediately good at.
Right.
And I think as a youth coach, like, yeah, tactics and positions might not be like the most important thing at such a young level. However, you can tell who's going to play where just by their attributes, just by the finer details. And I think that as well, like, defines a good coach, is just knowing your individual player, because putting
them in positions where they're going to succeed,
where they're going to thrive. Because
right.
it's like X, Y, and Z. She's good at defending. She always asks. She always goes in for the tackles.
Yep.
But player A, she likes to be more 1v1s. And you can tell, and it kind of like they fit in the puzzle pieces throughout the season.
Yeah.
Through day 1 to day 100, like, players change. And I think that also is a great attribute to have as a youth coach.
What do you really not like to see as for other youth coaches? What do you hate to see youth coaches do?
I think my main thing, and I think this is just like growing up in like that environment, is like just the yelling for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I can say I'm a tough love coach, but I'm not gonna yell at my kids for absolutely no reason.
Right.
It's gotta build up to it where like you gotta be a stern talking to. I get it. But when I show up to a field and I just see a coach yelling random things and it doesn't even make sense, and like watching that, like the kids switch off. Like the kids, as much as we probably don't want to admit it, they want to be your friend as much as your coach or player. They do want to have that person that they feel secure in. And I found that with my girls as well, is that like they want to have that friend. Like we'll talk about things that are so totally random at practice. And then when we get into practice, it's like, okay, you got to switch on. And I just hate seeing youth coaches like speak to young players, because I think it just drains the energy. And then it's not enjoyable anymore. My coach always yells. My coach doesn't make sense. My coach doesn't speak to me. They speak at me.
Right.
And I think that's hard to see.
So bad communication. That's it.
I think just being mean for no reason.
Being mean. But like, yelling for sure. But I think coaches that yell, if they're yelling
with a purpose, I get it.
But obviously there's a fine line to that. Every coach is very, very different. But if you are a bad communicator and the things that are coming out of your mouth aren't like clear, concise, like informative to the kids at all, that's terrible.
Like if it's running if it's like yelling like run there and like you just do better, and it's like okay, do better at what? What are we doing? What is little Susie or Jimmy? Like why are we just running? Like,
and I think on a lot of coaching courses, you're told like the game, the match, those sorts of things. It should be an experience for the kids to problem solve themselves. And if you're joysticking and doing all those and constantly yelling from the sidelines, they're not really learning. And it's difficult to do because sometimes as a coach, you need to do that because the game may get out of hand quickly, and you can identify that.
You've got a guide, but not like you can't
play FIFA, play NBA.
Like I tell my girls, I'm like, I put so much into practice for you guys, because on the field, I can only do so much. I can't yell 50 yards across the field. Like, you're in charge at the end of the day. You guys are the bosses on the field. And I tell my girls, especially my like U10s, U9s, like, it's not a bad thing to talk to your teammates. Yeah. If you are in space and you want the ball, like, tell them. And it's things like that where I'm trying to teach them, like, coaches can only do so much at practice. It's all you guys in the game. Like, It should be. I can't walk onto the field and be like, you should be there, you should be there. Like, I've got to communicate well enough for practice that then they can take everything they need in the game, as well as teaching the girls or the boys in any sport to adapt in the moment as well. Like, not everything is a playbook, not everything's a step-by-step.
I think one thing I hate to see, and this is more so in practices, but I just like thought of it because a coach did this in like a warm-up in the games this weekend. I just hate to see long lines. Like for me, it needs to be like kids need to be active, kids need to be engaged, kids need to be having fun. Yeah. If you see a line like of 8, 10, 12, 15 kids, I'm immediately just like, oh goodness.
I feel like for me, it's got to be 4 max. Unless they're a bit older, then it can go to 5. Because then they like
their attention spans are like that at the younger ages. So if they stand in a line, and I've seen it all too well, because it's easy sometimes for a coach to do that, put them in the lines, and they think, oh, they're organized, but really, if you watch the kids, the individuals, they stand in the line and they're like,
The back end of that line isn't doing anything.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah, past player 5 and they're playing with the grass. They're kicking about with each other. Like
I cannot stand to see that. I hate to see that. If you're stood in a line and the coach this weekend was just like stood on the corner here playing balls, and he had like 12 kids stood in the line, and he's playing a ball to them, and they're taking it and dribbling and shooting. Like, you're waiting in between reps. You're waiting like 5 minutes at least. I'm like, oh my God, I hate to see that.
So what would be like your advice to kind of like fix that? Like, you've got this activity drill, whatever you want to call it. You've got your number of players. Would you just build another line?
Yeah,
would you like how would
you just need to look at it and like adapt to whatever the situation is, because sometimes when especially for the younger kids, parents will show up late, kids will come in late, and the session you thought was going to be for 12 is now for 16. So you need to adapt, but you need to figure out a way to just like maximize reps. You don't want kids being dog tired and having to sprint back and forth. There's 2 in a line.
Yeah.
But maximize reps. Make sure you're giving them enough breaks. Another thing I hate to see is coaches.
Let's get it all out in the open.
Not what makes a good coach, what makes it bad. But coaches that stand and talk forever. If you're stood in a training session, especially when it's cold, oh my goodness.
When the kids start to shake, that's when you've got to wrap up your speech.
If you speak to kids, and like I was bad for this a couple of years ago, at the end of the game, I only realized this going to watch games myself, because you're typically when you're coaching, you're the one in charge of everything. But if you go and watch games and you're waiting for a kid to finish their game, if the coach takes forever on their end of match team talk, it is oh God,
wrap it up,
because one, you're only getting so much information to the kids. 2, like parents get frustrated because they want to get out of there. It's such a time commitment anyway. But in training sessions, if kids are stood around and not active and not moving and not being engaged, your words can only do so much. Learning by actually doing and staying active is the way you really develop.
That's why it's so important. Like I was telling Kaki the other day, Coach Kaki is like, shorten your words. Because we know Coach Kaki likes to talk, but he also loves to be in depth, because he feels that he needs to explain it. And I love that from Kaki, I really do. But with kids and like young players, it's like keywords. Okay, we're passing, we're controlling pass, 2 touch, okay, go. We're keeping it very short and simple. He likes to say kick and follow for his dribbling. We're dribbling down the line. No, we kick and we follow. We kick and we follow. We dribble. We little kicks, like constantly just ramming in the little keywords into the kids, because they get it eventually and they know. Now it's just relaying like, okay, what do we do here? And they say those 2 words.
Right.
They're not going to spiel back your 20-minute speech. They're going to take the 3 words that they took from that and say it back. Exactly. So I think it's so important. And it's like, my experience from that is like it does not just happen at youth. Like it happened at college level. I watched a coach practice for 3 hours. No. And 2.5 of those hours was, right, come in and let's have a chat about it.
So frustrating.
And it's just like, I just want to play. The kids want to play. They don't want to, like, no offense to coaches, and this is to myself, no one wants to hear you talk. They're just there to play soccer, to play basketball, to play whatever sport it is. They don't care what you have to say unless it's short, sharp, get to the point.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the kids love it. They definitely. So that's another thing is, what do you think would be like the best advice? Brand new coach walks in onto the field. What's your first and foremost like line of advice right there?
I think for new coaches is to be open-minded. Number 1, coaches come in.
What do you mean?
And when I say open-minded, coaches come in because a lot of the times you've played the sport, you know the sport, you think you're at a certain level, and you think you can pass on what you've learned to these other kids. You need to be open-minded in terms of like how to go about doing that. You need to be open-minded in terms of like you maybe won't work with the level of kids that you think you're qualified to work with and stuff.
Not every kid's gonna get it.
Exactly. Everybody thinks that they know more. Everybody thinks they're this very good coach. There's a lot of great coaches out there, and there's a lot of people who really make such a positive impact in kids' lives. But for new coaches coming in, being humble, being open-minded, being willing to learn from other people and being given advice and told things, if you can do that, I think that's half the battle there.
I think that really sparked something in me, is because like growing up, like I started coaching when I was 13, and it's like everyone's like coaching qualifications, badges, all this, that, which, yes, 50% of it is being in those situations, going in those classes, learning. However, the best way that I've learned is to do it, and is to talk to everyone around. Talk to the coaches that coach before you, talk to the coaches that you work with, talk to the coaches above you, around you, talk to everybody, and also gain insight into like who you are as a coach. And like I've seen so many coaches been coached by so many different people. Like the way you coach is not going to be the same way I coach. Sure. And I don't want to be the exact same as you, because sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I knew you were going to say that. But it's because like the way that if you said a line, the kids are going to take it, so that's Coach Ricky. But if I say the same thing, they're going to be like, but that's not Coach Leigh. Yeah, we're not the same. Well, we might be the same person in some attributes, but like we're not the same coaches. Like Coach Kaki and I, 100% very other sides of the spectrum. However, we see the same vision. Like for me, like the advice to a new coach is like learn from everyone. Ask a million questions. And like even now, like I see coaches like way older, you know, getting to the point where they're probably not going to coach anymore. Like they're still able to learn. Just because you've been doing it for God knows how many years doesn't mean that you're done learning.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
never done. Never.
New
the game's
coaches,
constantly changing for sure.
Old coaches, like you can constantly learn. And that's what I want to do. Like I want to talk to a million people and be like, well, what would you do in this scenario? Right. And they might say something to me that I don't agree with, but that's then a perspective of like, they would do it this way. I would take 20% of what they said, 20% of what this person said, and the rest is mine. Like that's how you learn. Like personally as a player and a coach, that's how I learn. Just plop yourself in the deep end and just talk to everybody.
I think when you make that transition or you become a coach, when you've played at a certain level especially, you get a whole new appreciation for coaches. Yeah. And you think about, wow, I probably was very difficult to coach and manage.
I was a horrible player.
Or whatever. But it gives you a new perspective of the game, but it gives you a completely new appreciation for coaches and what they do, because it's like, it's a player's game. It's not a coach's game.
Yeah.
So coaches are trying to empower, they set things up, they organize things, but ultimately it's for the players.
Yeah. They're more of a guider.
Exactly.
Guidelines, not step by step. Yeah. I think, I don't know if you've met, but Alyssa, she, first season, was indoor rec with me, and she just like was amazing. Like centre back immediately, I told her centre back, and she was like, I've never kicked a ball before, but I could just tell. And she was like, can I volunteer? And I was like, coach, get here, pick that cone up, do this pinning. But she's also getting the perspective now of like, okay, so what would you do, Coach Leigh, with this 6-year-old girl? Like she's now asked this or she's doing this. And it's that different perspective that I think would help her so much. If she keeps playing and then puts coaching side by side, I think it helps so much. I did that. I coached from 13 and I played since I was 4, and I've done it side by side. And it's different perspective, like you said. As going from player to coach, you're like, wow, the coaches have a hard time. Like it's a rough life out here being a coach, but the players don't know that. Yeah. And I think,
but they also shouldn't care about that, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. But what my point is that like coaching, and then okay, it's my turn to be a player. You see different aspects that you just I can't even think of anything right now. Like it just naturally just like coincides in your head of like, oh, this is the outside perspective. It's like different camera viewpoints. You know what I mean? Like I like that. That's how you'd see it with like a player and a coach. And Alyssa, like I hope she keeps playing, but I hope she keeps coaching as well. I think that would help her so much as a player. So
to wrap up, good coaches communicate well, good energy,
yes,
passionate, willing to learn.
It's just
don't talk too much.
Yeah.
Don't have kids.
Don't waffle like me. If you know me, I'm known for, what is it called? What do I do? Rambler. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I think adapt, know your players, and just know your environment, and like don't be afraid to learn every step of the way. Don't be afraid. Yeah.
That's it.
We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.